Hello everyone, I'm Nakwe.
And I'm Peter.
And
We
are
the
Birds
of
Play. In this video, we are going to be comparing the Japanese and the English versions of the newly released launch trailer for the highly anticipated Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker.
So highly anticipated.
So here's how it works. Just like usual, we have the original English up at the top, and then down at the bottom we have the Japanese subtitles and a more literal or alternative translation, what is being said in Japanese.
And we'll try to comment when there is something important enough to talk about. But if you just want the subtitles, you can always check out our no commentary version, which is already available. Still here? Then let's go.
それがやがて世界を救うのかは今の私たちをして定められず
Wait, is this the new Final Fantasy XIV trailer? No? Oh, okay. Soon.
死にゆくこと出会えば別れ始まれば終わるせいぜい惜しんで進むがいいその旅の先
So this is Emmett Selk narrating, and I want you to try to remember the sound of his voice in Japanese, because it will come into play again a bit later, because the Japanese trailer seems to play a bit around with who is actually speaking. Regarding this line, I just want to point out that the Japanese might be a bit more hesitant to celebrate or to treasure the moments left, since it uses the word seisei, which means to the utmost or as much as possible, adding a layer of bittersweetness to the line, I feel.
星と命の沈む海底に真実は待つ
Here we can see some differences between the Japanese and the English versions. The Japanese version mentioning the ocean floor, while the English version just mentions the depths.
But what does it mean?
Well, all of it could just be metaphorical, I guess, but it could also point to us not only going to the moon, but also closer to the center of the planet. So maybe it's related to Pandemonium if you imagine the capital of hell being somewhere deep beneath the ground.
And the fact that the camera pans down into the ocean, I feel, also gives us cause to believe we'll be literally going downstairs.
Here the Japanese version is actually less descriptive, just saying I don't understand, but while the English version seems to talk about Alphino and Alice and perhaps the Garleans not belonging in this frozen hellscape.
Does that mean that Garlemald wasn't always like this, or that they are in some other place, which they are all strangers to? Are they maybe fighting in Ishgard?
ここは風が冷たすぎるよそれは道しるべでありあなたを人を試すもの暗闇のうちに喜びを探すのです前へと歩み続けた者だけがその真なる輝きを得る終わりにしましょう苦しみを
Here the English version doesn't really say anything, but this line does seem to fit very well with Anima making a return, especially if you are familiar with Anima from Final Fantasy X and how Seymour dreamed of ending all suffering.
And I'm curious how they're gonna make Anima fit into Final Fantasy XIV. Because Anima is one of those summons that just feels so connected with the game it was in, being such a big part of the story. But it does seem to be somewhat appropriate since Endwalker seems to be dealing a bit with the question of how to come to terms with the suffering associated with the end.
それ以外に何を望むというの空が燃えてる本当に週末が来たんだわ
Here, Alice once again speaks in a rather feminine way, showing how the Japanese and the English versions differ a bit, and for some reason, I really seem to like the Japanese version.
I don't know about the Japanese, but this armor looks a lot like the one Judge Bergen wears in Final Fantasy XII, which is just a nice callback since the Gallian armors are already so reminiscent of Judges from Final Fantasy XII.
なくさせない。一つでも。
私たちじゃ逃げる道を選ぶことしかできないの。
この星はまだ終わるには早すぎるんだよ。
I'm not exactly sure who is speaking here, and whether it's the same character in both Japanese and English, but the different versions do seem to be conveying a different sentiment, maybe even conflicting ones. The English version implying that some people have gone too far and have to finish what they started, while the Japanese version talks about being too early for the star to die.
それは絶望と悲嘆が渦巻く場所に現れ命を賭して戦うものだという
The music is about to get good. Fuck yeah.
I think this line is sort of interesting in the Japanese version, because Pandaniel mentions Zodiac as the god who created them, while I was under the impression after playing Shadowbringers that the Ascians actually created Zodiac. Maybe it has something to do with Pandaniel not being one of the Unsonded, or maybe I'm just misunderstanding the lore.
And the music, brother.
So, in the English version, we actually have a different character saying these lines. I don't know who it is, but it definitely isn't Fandaniel. But it does appear to be a fellow Ascian.
Is it that Judge Bergen character?
そうというのか。この美しき世界を。
Here's the reason why I asked you to memorize the Japanese voice of Amit Selk, because this isn't it, even though he's the one talking in the English version. Also, they are saying some different things. Amit Selk proclaiming the final chapter in the Tale of the Star, and the Japanese voice claiming that the death of this beautiful world would be a travesty. Who is this mysterious man?
The end can't come soon enough.
君たちが仲間として隣にいてくれる。ありがとう。これも後回しにせずに伝えておきたかったんだ。終わりは誰の近くにもあると。
When I listen to the English version, it seems a bit like they are alluding to Alphino perhaps dying in Endwalker. But when I listen to the Japanese version, it sounds more like anyone could die, because he says that the end can be close to anyone.
So no one is safe.
そう感じたから。
Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. There maybe weren't any huge revelations in the trailer, but we still thought we'd give it a go. At the very least, it might shorten the wait until Endwalker finally releases.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we hope to see you again next time. Good
It was fun!